name's Colin Newton. I've been an educational psychologist for some 36 years, and I'm also co-founder of Inclusive Solutions. Now, some of the work I continue to do is as an educational psychologist, and what's been striking me over the last few years is the focus on, within the SEND world, on places, special needs places, special provision places, spaces within the school. Have we got a place we can put these children? And they may get kind of different names. The harder name would be a word like unit, softer name might be hub, or a fancy name like the green room or the red room or the ladybird room. It might have some kind of friendly name, but basically what we're talking about is a special class, a special place. Sometimes, certainly in secondary situations, even school-based places may have fences around them, may be gated, may even be locked up. So it starts there for some children, especially those with the most complex needs. But what I've increasingly noticed then is, if the provision isn't working within the school, then there's a kind of move for alternative provision outside the school, the place that will really kind of work for that child. And then, of course, there's the kind of, well, is there a special school for children like this? So there's kind of a moving, kind of a sense of movement and progression up a tariff. Special school, again, there may be frustrations around. People may reach for residential special school a long way from home. Interestingly, sometimes these places, when you actually visit them, may have a lot of adults, but aren't that special when you look at them. Sometimes they may look not much more than a shed, or they may be in a very, very grand building, but actually when you look closely at what's happening, you could be disappointed from what you're looking at. So these are places served by the medical model, and a kind of belief that if we found the right place for the child, it's almost like we found the right treatment for the child. They could maybe being cured would be too far, but maybe we could just treat them and their needs would suddenly change. That's the medical model, isn't it? And the medical model would maybe say, if you can go into the right treatment centre, you could somehow kind of be sorted somehow. But with special educational needs and disability, it's a bit different, isn't it, really? As we know, some of these conditions are just part of who that person is. It's not going to go anyway. It's not going to disappear in that child's lifetime when they become an adult. A place isn't going to resolve the difficulties. And of course, if the issues around behaviour or emotion or mental health, sometimes being put in a place where you're surrounded by other children, young people who are similarly feeling challenged in the same area, causes other kind of fallout, all kinds of other issues. It can be the relationships and the issues being brought in by the other children, young people, and how they're being around that focused young person and how they're responding to that. And they might find that really, really difficult. So for all kinds of reasons, and of course the other thing is, of course, the research, which is very, very high on how all children and young people learn, which is basically by imitation, by copying. Now, if you're surrounded with children with learning difficulties or communication difficulties, that's not helping you. If you're surrounded with children with very, very challenging behaviour, that's definitely not helping you either, because you're, again, very likely to learn some of their behaviour. That University of Crime and Violence we've spoken about in previous YouTube clips, could reoccur here. Now, it seems to me more productively would be kind of an embracing of the notion of spaces. So not places, spaces. So thinking in a school, any school, what are the spaces we have available to us? Because obviously some children just staying in the classroom is just too much. They're finding it too much. The sensory world is maybe overloaded if they're autistic. If they... For instance, if they have very challenged behaviour and they can't handle the classroom all the time, or it's just getting too much, they're needing some kind of movement break, then maybe we could find some other space for them to kind of just chill out a bit or just kind of move around in a different kind of way. So spaces are very, very important. So we have to think about this, and And if you think at a typical school, some of the spaces that might be used to enable a child to get out of the heat of the classroom, to be able to move around a bit more freely, well, you've got various spaces usually. There's obviously another classroom, either occupied or unoccupied. You've got usually a hall that can be accessed. You've got the playground, the yard, you've got corridors. You've got, sometimes there's other little kind of spaces and rooms, from music rooms to kind of other bits and pieces. So it's thinking about creatively trying to use spaces in different ways that can be used for a very short term before to help the child kind of readjust or calm or regulate themselves before they return to their main base, their main space, which is obviously usually their mainstream classroom. And I think if we can keep the mainstream classroom at the heart of where that young person really experiences belonging, I think we're on the right lines. So if they feel this is where I belong, I'm part of this tutor group, I'm part of this class, sometimes I need another space to go somewhere, I think that is much more productive as a kind of a mindset and a way of planning than kind of really hooking onto this idea they need another place to go. And thinking, well, if just another space isn't enough, what else might we need to strengthen the movement between spaces? What team might the child need around them? When they're in these different spaces, what might it take to help them? Well, we could talk about that, and we will talk about that on some further videos along these different lines. But for now, let's just think about the ownership of this young person, where they sit, where their needs are being met, in the most inclusive, in the most person-centered way possible. And I think for any of us, we'd like to kind of have a sense of belonging where everybody else is belonging, where our peers are, where our age mates are. So let's use spaces, not places. Spaces, not places. So thank you very much for listening. If you've liked this content or you've got an angle on this, please add a comment. If you like the content, give us a like. And if you want to subscribe to more of this, please do subscribe. Thanks for listening.